Vince McMahon lied to me, and he cheated me in Montreal. That son of a bitch screwed me, because there was no benefit to it. There was no gain to it.
The ultimate program of all times in the history of wrestling would be you and Vince McMahon doing storylines for a year. Is there any chance, is there any price that that would happen?
No, never.
Watching that again, the thing that stands out is the pause. No, so definitive. That was almost exactly a decade ago. Today, Bret Hart's here, and the answer is yes. Why?
Well, everyone, that's a good question. I'm sure everyone's curious.
Yeah, I don't think it's the first time you've been asked that question.
But, I don't rarely get a chance to answer it. And the truth is, I thought it would be fun. I thought I needed a little adventure. And I had some time where I found I was doing nothing. And I thought, why not? And I kept kind of taking the why nots against the whys and sort of balance them. And in the end, I couldn't come up with enough sensible reasons why I wouldn't go back and have a little fun.
A lot of people are saying that he's doing it for the most logical reason people go to work, and that is to make money. Is this about money?
Hopefully I'll make some money, but it's not.
Well, I assume that you got a guarantee. I mean, you are, if nobody else, educated in the ways of Vince McMahon.
Yeah, but it was never really about the money. And even when I talked to him about it, money was not a big issue for me or a factor. We didn't dicker about so much about what I was going to get paid. It was more about what they might do with me and how we could make it fun, and a way to make it really a big negative that took 13 years of my life thinking about it and not worrying about it, but always having it at the back of my head and sort of being angry about what happened and trying to take something negative and turn it into a positive.
So let me read you a quote, something that you wrote. I mean, you are a writer, right? You wrote a great book. You have all these blogs. And I went back and it said, if Montreal hadn't happened, I'd have been there at Over the Edge. I guarantee you Owen would never have been up in the rafters in the first place. So my brother wouldn't have died that day. The Hart family wouldn't have been ripped apart during a lawsuit. I wouldn't have been in the WCW and sustained a career-ending concussion. That's a pretty long list of reasons why you should never work with Vince McMahon again.
Fair enough, but at the same time, I'm a 52-year-old man that, I'm sitting at home. I suffered a stroke in 2002. And a few years back, I did Aladdin with the Ross Petty and all that. It was a lot of fun for me, and I enjoyed it. And I found myself all these years later going, if I was to go back and could go back on my own terms, is there any way I could do it where it could be fun and I could almost make light of what happened and sort of, everything that happened. Clearly what happened with my brother Owen was an accident. I don't think anyone refutes that much anymore. So I think Vince McMahon and the WWE for all these years kind of carried around a lot of heartache related to all that stuff, because I don't think anyone felt good that happened, or it was just a sort of a touchy sore spot for everybody. And I think even a few months ago when I did the big handshake with Shawn Michaels in the middle of the ring, I think it was a real weight off his back, and sort of I believe in my own little way that I kind of set Shawn free that day. And
I want to talk about Shawn and Triple H and the others in a moment after we go to commercial. But before that, the way you're saying it, is heartfelt and honest. I'm a 52-year-old man. I'm sitting at home. Isn't that a huge problem in wrestling in general? It's tough to give it up.
Well, I didn't go back because I had to have it or I needed it. I was kind of like I said, kind of an adventure. It's kind of fun to get back on an airplane and fly, and I don't have the schedule that the wrestlers have, and just to kind of play a bit part on the show. And
who leaves wrestling, Bret? Who of your generation left wrestling and said, I'm retiring, I'm going to go on, and they had another career and they lived happily ever after?
Well, there's a handful that, have moved on or don't go back. Like you look at Macho Man or Warrior and some of these guys, they've never really necessarily come back. I'm sure some of them think about coming back, and if they could kind of create a way that might be fun and do what I'm doing, they might consider it. But what I'm doing has been a relatively light schedule, and it's been fun for me to do so far. And I feel that when I initially approached them about it, I mean, they didn't come to me, I came to them, and I basically talked about trying to turn a negative into a positive and making it just a better ending than the one I had at the end.
Back in the day, the guys you wrestled with, a lot of them aren't here anymore because a lot of them have died. It must be a profound experience for you to walk into a WWE dressing room.
Well, you know, you're right. There's like, you know, I managed myself when I was 52 years old. I'd probably sitting on my back porch with Kurt Hennig and Owen and Davey Boy having a few beers, laughing about all the, you know, the old times and stuff. But, you know, I found one of the hardest parts of my retirement has been that everybody I know died. There's hardly any of them around anymore. And, you know, the ones that are around, most of them are train wrecks. And, you know, to go back and see the wrestlers of today in contrast to the wrestlers of yesterday. I mean, the kids today, I call them kids because they're all completely different attitude. They all seem like they're in bed by 11 or something like that. Nobody's out drinking and carousing like the old wrestlers from my era. And you know, they're much more focused than we were, and they're a lot smarter. Unfortunately, the wrestlers of yesterday, the Sheiks and you know that type, they never saved their money. No one ever taught them how to. No, they never had any skills or education on how to save their money and how to invest and what to do when you make so much money. And these are the things you got to lay out money for and
Fascinating
RSPs.
Whether the new generation will be able to learn from the mistakes of the old generation. I want to ask you, hold on to those thoughts. I want to ask you about a couple of guys. I want to ask you about Shawn Michaels. I want to ask you about Triple H, about Ric Flair. What you think about those guys? We'll do that next with Bret, the Hitman Hart. Good to see you. Hold on. Shawn Michaels crying in the dressing room?
Shawn Michaels left like a baby in the dressing room.
But Shawn was a guy that was very insecure and very, I think, weak as a person. I'd say he was a two-faced, lying chicken. He was the kind of guy that would make friends with you or bury the hatchet with you 10 minutes later, and 10 minutes later he'd be out there stabbing you in the back.
I think I have to say this. It should be said that Bret Hart has been the most important guest in this show's history. You put us on the map partly because of your candor. So I have heard it before today, and I'm hearing it now. Your candid, honest thoughts. Let me throw out some names. We've done this before, and you tell me what you think of these guys. Not necessarily in the ring, but in general. You know where I'm going first, right? Who am I going to ask you?
You're going to ask me about Shawn.
Yeah.
You know, with Shawn, you know, he's a Christian now, and I don't know, for years I never ever thought of myself ever forgiving Shawn for what happened to me, and I will never forget what happened, and I don't necessarily forgive it all the way. I mean, I forgive it to a certain degree, but you know, when I saw Shawn and we talked briefly that afternoon before we went in the ring, and I could tell that he was quite taken back by my you know, I was really open with him and quite sincere with him about trying to put all this behind. And as far as I'm concerned,
shouldn't that be what he did though to you? Like you were the injured party in theory. Shouldn't he have come to you? Maybe you're being the bigger man.
Yeah, well, I think I took the first step, and I think that meant something to him because, to be honest, I believe that they all had so much shame and guilt that they didn't really want to take that step. But when
From what happened in Survivor Series,
yeah.
you're talking about.
So I think when I met Shawn that day and when I basically forgave him right in the ring in front of everybody, it was far more real than people think. I know everything in wrestling seems like it's all rehearsed or a put on a lot of time, but
well, it is.
But with Shawn that day, it was very sincere in the way we were talking to each other. I could sense after, I always had this feeling that after, when I see Shawn prancing around and that it didn't really mean anything to him, that he's still a little jerk, that it would bother me, and then I feel like I sold myself out. But the truth is that I think once I kind of took all that weight off Shawn's back, that he's been a better person to me anyway, and we've kind of picked up where we left off, and we're like old friends like we were once upon a time.
Let me throw out a couple of names, just a few seconds. Triple H.
Triple H, I've only seen him a couple of times, and we've talked very briefly.
You don't like him?
We were never close friends. And
no, you didn't like him. You said on this show, I don't like Triple H.
No, I think like would be too big a word.
Ric Flair.
Flair, I feel sorry for him. Like you were talking about wrestlers, that when is enough kind of thing. When do they ever give up and go home to their families and their real lives? Rick's, I think, one of those kind of guys. He's a little bit ahead of me, but I remember a time sort of knowing that I had to get out of wrestling and go home to my kids before they were grown up and gone, and that I had no family life. And I think wrestlers make this decision. I'm sure Hogan's the same, and different guys, where they decide they got to go home to their families or they got to stay in the wrestling business, and that becomes your family. And Flair stayed in the wrestling business, forgot about his family. His family moved on and left him. And the only thing Ric Flair knows is the dressing room, the airports, the bar after, and drinking and talking about.
Sums up everything we were talking about. Sorry, I got to cut you off. This has been fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Snap into a Slim Jim. Dig it.
A sharpshooter. Can he do it? No, he do it. Bret, the Hitman Hart.
Wow. We were both spectacularly mediocre. You've got more information than I do.
Time now for next question with Bret the Hitman Hart. I'll ask myself a question and then answer it. Best, most important guest in history of OTR? Bret the Hitman Hart. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
So, honestly, in the last few days, how many times have people asked you, have you lost your mind?
How many times have people asked me that?
Frequently?
Hardly ever.
Oh, okay, let me ask you now. Have you lost your mind? You're going back to wrestling? You had a stroke.
I'm going to go back and have a little fun.
If you could only choose one, would you rather have Hulk Hogan's hair or Jim Neidhart's goatee?
I'd rather have Jim Neidhart's goatee, because Hulk Hogan has no hair.
Does Duke the Dumpster Drosy pick up your garbage?
Never.
When was the last time you had your teeth checked by Dr. Isaac Yankem?
Funny enough, I've never seen him again.
Really?
No.
Is the character the Goon just about the stupidest gimmick Vince McMahon has ever come up with?
Next to Gobbledygook.
He's had some stupid ones, I
Yeah,
guess.
there's been some bad ones.
Give us your best guess. How much time does Vince spend in a tanning salon on a daily basis?
About the same as Dracula.
Does Dracula tan?
No.
Well, he doesn't get natural sunlight, I guess. What size tights were you wearing when you last wrestled? Let's go back to WCW.
Well, you know, I know this is hard to believe, but I've always, all my career, I had the same size waist and the same size. I wear the same waist size now. So I would wear the same tights that I wore years ago, even though my body's changed
I'm assuming
around.
you're telling the truth, because not a lot of guys admit they wear tights, period. Who's a better wrestling actor, you, Roddy Piper, or Hulk Hogan?
I think I was the best actor when it came to acting, but I think that, yeah, I would say
Let's
me.
go with you, yeah. Have you read Hulk Hogan's new book?
No, I wouldn't waste my time.
Estimate for me how many pairs of glasses over the years you've given out.
I don't know, but I know that someone told me I had 4,000 matches in WWE history. So if you add that up, I probably had sunglasses for 2/3 of it anyway.
So if you can do the math, 2/3 of 4,000, then we'll let you back in the ring.
Too many concussions.
I shouldn't be laughing. What would you find more of in Randy Savage's locker room? Slim Jims or steroids?
I would say Slim Jims.
But just barely, right?
I never thought of Randy as a steroid guy.
Who's one guy that wrestled back in the day that is still wrestling in this day that you say, man, just give it up?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is Flair, but I don't know if he's actually still wrestling, or maybe Hogan. Hogan more so. At least Flair can wrestle a little bit.
Did you like Doink the Clown as an evil clown or as a good clown?
Oh, he was better as an evil clown.
Backstage, how hard was it to understand the Ultimate Warrior?
Impossible.
When you were on tour, how often did Jesse the Body Ventura try to influence your political views?
Every once in a while. Like, he was a really intelligent guy. I remember him talking to me about unions and things like that. So he was pretty sharp and maybe in a lot of ways ahead of his time. But
Final question, and I'll tie it into what you just said. Would guys like you be better off if you had a union?
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for doing this, man.